Early March arrived in Cedar Falls, Iowa, the way it usually did, undecided. Winter hadn't fully let go, but spring was already tapping its foot impatiently. Dirty snow lingered in shaded corners of parking lots, while front lawns showed thin patches of brown grass trying to remember how green worked. The air smelled like thawing earth and coffee drifting from open cafe doors. People dressed in layers they removed and regretted removing 5 minutes later. Nate Holloway, 37, stood inside Riverbend Diner, hands wrapped around a chipped ceramic mug, listening to weather predictions he didn't believe. Nate had the face of a man who once planned big things and still vaguely meant to get back to them. Square jaw softened by habitually amused expressions, dark eyebrows that lifted easily in skepticism, and eyes that looked alert even when his life felt on pause. He wore a flannel shirt under a light jacket, jeans that fit comfortably enough to admit he valued practicality over ambition, and boots scuffed from actual use, not aesthetic. Across from him sat Eric Malone, 36, Nate's best friend since middle school, leaning back in the booth like the world owed him legroom. "You're telling me," Eric said, sipping his coffee, "that you think I can't go 1 month without sugar?" Nate raised an eyebrow. "I'm saying I know you can't." Eric scoffed. "I run 5 miles a week. You reward yourself with donuts. Recovery carbs." Nate smiled. This was familiar territory, the gentle battlefield of long friendship, where insults were currency and bets were inevitable. The diner buzzed softly around them. A waitress named Pamela Rios, mid-40s, efficient and kind in a way that came from repetition rather than training, refilled mugs without being asked. At the counter, Walter Briggs, retired, argued with the newspaper like it could hear him. Outside, pickup trucks rolled past slowly, tires hissing on wet pavement. Eric leaned forward. "All right, let's make it interesting." Nate should have known better. He always did, just slightly too late. "If I go 30 days without sugar," Eric said, "you do the challenge." Nate frowned. "What challenge?" Eric grinned. Public, personal growth. That sounds suspiciously vague." "Fine," Eric said. "You have to do one thing every day for a month that scares you a little. Post it online. No filters." Nate laughed. "That's not scary. That's annoying." Eric's grin widened. "And if you lose?" Eric tapped the table. "Then I do it." Silence stretched. Pamela paused mid-pour. "Don't," she warned. Nate looked at Eric, then at the window, then at his coffee. "Deal." The word landed heavier than expected. Eric lasted 8 days. 8 heroic, miserable, deeply documented days without sugar. On day 9, he forgot that barbecue sauce counted. Nate found out via a photo Eric posted at Lou's Smokehouse, ribs shining with betrayal. The comment section exploded. Eric texted immediately. "Does honey glaze count?" Nate stared at his phone, heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with victory. "You lost." "Damn." Nate sat back, realization settling in. He'd won, which meant he'd lost. The challenge began the following Monday, under a gray sky that felt personally judgmental. Cedar Falls woke slowly, the way towns did when nothing dramatic was scheduled. Nate stood in front of his bathroom mirror, phone in hand. "Okay," he said to his reflection. Day 1. He hit record. "Hi, I'm Nate Holloway. I lost a bet. So today, he swallowed, introducing myself to strangers." He stopped recording. Stared. Started again. It took 27 attempts. By noon, he stood in line at Maple Street Hardware, heart racing like he was about to confess a crime. The man ahead of him turned. Tom Wilkes, late 50s, beard like it had opinions. "Hey," Nate said, voice cracking just enough to be annoying. "I'm Nate." Tom blinked. "Okay." Nate nodded. "Nice weather." Tom nodded back. "It's March." Nate smiled too hard. Later, Nate posted the video. Caption, "Day 1, still alive." People laughed. They didn't mock him, they recognized him. By evening, messages rolled in. "Doing great. Respect. This is weirdly motivating." Nate lay on his couch, phone on his chest, staring at the ceiling fan. Maybe this wouldn't kill him. Maybe it would change him. Outside, Cedar Falls settled into night. Porch lights flicked on. Someone practiced guitar badly. Life went on. And for the first time in a while, Nate didn't feel like he was watching it from behind glass. By the second week, Cedar Falls had started to thaw for real. Snow piles collapsed into gray puddles, lawns softened underfoot, and the Cedar River ran louder than usual, swollen and impatient. People cracked car windows again. Coffee lids came off. The town shifted from surviving winter to tolerating spring. Nate Holloway woke up on day 11 already tired. Not physically, emotionally. The novelty of the challenge had worn off. The adrenaline spikes faded faster now, replaced by a low, constant awareness that every day required showing up in a way he'd spent years avoiding. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. Eric Malone. What's today's terror? Nate sighed, then typed. Open mic. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then reappeared. Eric, you didn't lose that badly. Nate smiled despite himself. He rolled out of bed, feet hitting cold hardwood, and looked out the window. Across the street, Mrs. Jean Porter, 78, watered her plants with the same care she gave everything, even when frost still threatened. Down the block, a teenage girl practiced parallel parking while her father gestured wildly from the sidewalk. Cedar Falls didn't know Nate was scared today. That somehow made it worse. The Copper Rail Cafe hosted open mic nights every Thursday. It was the kind of place that pretended to be edgy but still wiped tables with vinegar and played folk music at exactly the volume where conversation survived. The crowd skewed young, but not intimidating, college students, townies, a few retirees who liked feeling included. Nate arrived early, hoodie zipped, hands damp. Behind the counter, Samantha Lee, 26, barista with a sleeve tattoo and permanent look of polite judgment, raised an eyebrow. You performing? She asked. Nate nodded once, like a man agreeing to surgery. She handed him a clipboard. Sign-ups brave. Respect. That word again. Respect. It followed him now, uninvited. When his name was called, Nate walked to the mic on legs that didn't feel entirely his. The room quieted, not dramatically, just enough. Ah, Nate said. Hi, I'm Nate. I lost a bet. Laughter rippled gently. He told them about the sugar, the barbecue sauce, the challenge. He didn't try to be funny. That's why it worked. People laughed anyway, at recognition, not punchlines. When he finished, the applause surprised him. Walking back to his seat, Nate realized something alarming. He felt lighter. By day 17, the challenge wasn't about fear anymore. It was about momentum. Nate volunteered to coach the middle school track team for a day. He danced, poorly, at a birthday party he barely knew the host of. He apologized publicly to a coworker for a years-old misunderstanding he'd quietly carried like a pebble in his shoe. Each post gathered comments. Not viral, not huge, just human. Then came day 21, the hardest one yet. Eric stood beside him outside Cedar Falls Community Center, arms crossed. You don't have to, Eric said. Nate nodded. I do. Inside, folding chairs formed a loose circle. A handwritten sign read, Community Story Night. Nate had agreed to tell his story. Not the bet. The stagnation. He stood, palms open, voice steady. I stayed comfortable too long, he said. And I confused comfort with safety. The room stayed quiet. Not awkward quiet. Listening quiet. When he finished, Walter Briggs stood and clapped first. Others followed. Afterward, Ruth Delgado, seated, warm-eyed, touched Nate's arm. Thank you, she said. You reminded me it's never too late to be brave. That one stuck. The challenge ended on day 30, under a clear blue sky that felt earned. Nate posted his final video standing near the river. I didn't become fearless, he said. I just stopped waiting to feel ready. The comments came in fast. Eric hugged him later that night, awkward and sincere. You didn't just win, Eric said. You leveled up. Nate laughed. Cedar Falls glowed quietly behind them. The bet was over. The habit remained.
Like and subscribe if you want to be happy and motivate.